Royal health concern as another princess tests positive for COVID as infections surge. Crown Princess Mary is the latest European royal to test positive for coronavirus, the Danish royal house has announced. The Crown Princess, who is the wife of Crown Prince Frederik, the future King of Denmark, has tested positive for COVID-19. The Danish royal palace announced on Wednesday the princess is currently self-isolating at her home, Frederiksberg's Palace at Amalienborg, one of the Danish royal family's 4 main residences. The royal house said in a statement, "The Crown Princess has tested positive for COVID-19 today, Wednesday, December 15, 2021. Her Royal Highness is staying in isolation at Frederiksberg's Palace at Amalienborg. There is no indication that others in the family are infected." In connection with the test result, the Royal House of Denmark is receiving advice from the Danish Patient Safety Authority concerning detection of infection. The Crown Princess will remain in isolation until it is once again safe to end the isolation according to the applicable guidelines. This worrying news comes less than 2 weeks before Mary, Frederik and their children are due to spend Christmas at Amalienborg Castle in Aarhus with 81-year-old Queen Margrethe. Queen Margrethe has already cancelled a few scheduled engagements marking the new year following the introduction of new restrictions in her country. As it was announced last week, the Danish Queen has decided to cancel the New Year's banquet for the government, the Speaker of the Danish Parliament, representatives of official Denmark and the royal court on January 1, 2022. More events taking place on January 4 and 5 will also be affected, the royal house added in a statement. As the Danish Queen's Golden Jubilee falls in mid-January, royal watchers are now concerned the sovereign won't be able to properly mark this milestone. The Danish royals have already dealt with COVID-19 in their family. Last December, Mary and Frederik's elder son Prince Christian tested positive to COVID-19 following an outbreak at his school. Other members of royal families across Europe have been touched by COVID. In March 2020, Prince Charles tested positive, as announced by Clarence House. The Prince of Wales remained in self-isolation for 7 days before his medical teams deemed it safe for him to end his quarantine. His elder son Prince William also fell ill with COVID during the first wave in April 2020. However, he only spoke about his diagnosis several months later. The future sovereign of Sweden, Crown Princess Victoria and her husband Crown Prince Daniel of Sweden showed slight symptoms after testing positive in March 2021. A few months prior, Victoria's brother Prince Carl Philip also caught the virus, alongside his wife Princess Sophia. Among other royals who have so far tested positive for coronavirus, there has also been Prince Albert of Monaco. The head of the Grimaldi house contracted the virus in March 2020 but he continued to suffer from episodes of fatigue long after his quarantine ended. Speaking about his experience with COVID, he told People magazine in December last year, "Immediately after my quarantine, I felt better, but I still didn't feel quite right." He then started experiencing regular episodes of fatigue not every day, but 2-3 times a week. These, he added, absolutely lasted into June. He also said, "There were times during the day when it just hit, but not like the kind of drowsiness you feel after a heavy meal. It was really just an experience of physical fatigue, like the kind that comes on when you've done too much or when you're coming off an illness. This virus stays with you quite a while." Better, but I still didn't feel quite right. He then started experiencing regular episodes of fatigue, not every day, but 2-3 times a week. These, he added, absolutely lasted into June. He also said, there were times during the day when it just hit, but not like the kind of drowsiness you feel after a heavy meal. It was really just an experience of physical fatigue, like the kind that comes on when you've done too much or when you're coming off an illness. This virus stays with you quite a while.